Hey y'all, it's Jennifer with Between Sessions. Hope you're having a good day today. Today we're looking at self-neglect, which is one of the most common forms of childhood emotional neglect. So most of us neglect ourselves at times. We push through exhaustion, we silence our own preferences, we tell ourselves it's not that big of a deal. But over time, the self-neglect quietly shapes the quality of our lives in the ways that are far more damaging than the ways that others may have overlooked us even. So we're going to look at where self-neglect begins and how you can start to change it. One of the most common roots of self-neglect is childhood emotional neglect. When a child's emotional needs aren't consistently noticed, responded to, valued, the child adapts. They learn to downplay their feelings, they learn not to ask for too much, and they learn to manage on their own. And eventually they learn to ignore themselves. If this resonates, please know that it's not your fault that the pattern began, but it is something that you do have the power to change. So you may not pursue activities that you genuinely enjoy. You may stay in a job that's understimulates you or drains you. You skip rest, eat in ways that leaves your body depleted, you rely on habits that numb rather than nourish. That could be alcohol, drugs. You consistently prioritize everybody else's needs above your own, and that could be speaking to the parents out there. These patterns are common, especially for capable, responsible adults who grew up believing that their needs are secondary. So those are some of the common signs of self-neglect. The more subtle patterns, though, you may hold back your opinions and keep peace. You may overschedule your time where there's no room to breathe, just a jam-packed schedule every day. You settle for very little joy, and you ignore ongoing sources of unhappiness, neglecting your appearance in ways that can quietly erode self-esteem, and spend little time, out in nature, sunlight, getting fresh air, just doing things that are part of a healthy human routine. So if you see yourself here, you're not alone, but we want to have a gentle reality check in this and think, would you treat a child this way if they were in your care? Would you deny them rest? Would you withhold nutritious food, prevent them from having fun, tell them that their opinions don't matter, keep them indoors without fresh air, and leave their emotional pain unaddressed? Of course not. So yeah, many of adults treat themselves exactly in these ways, not out of cruelty, but out of conditioning. So why this runs so deep? At the core, we think chronic self-neglect often grows from an unspoken belief that I'm not worth the effort. This belief may be conscious. You might appear confident, responsible, high-achieving, but somewhere inside there is this quiet undercurrent of unworthiness that's there. So the good news, beliefs formed in childhood can be reshaped in adulthood, and that's where therapy is really beneficial at doing just that. So the steps to begin healing: you don't have to overhaul your entire life. That can be overwhelming, but change works best when it's focused and steady. So first we want to identify, where is the self-neglect costing you the most? Is it physically, emotionally, relationally, professionally? Second, write it down. Put it in writing because it creates clarity. And third, choose one focus. Resist trying to fix everything all at once, because there's a tendency to run down too many rabbit holes at one time. Fourth, build awareness. When you slip into old habits, you respond with curiosity and not shame, because we can be prone to shaming in ways that are unhelpful. And fifth, track your progress. The visible progress builds momentum. You can jot that down in a calendar, put it in your phone. Think that small, meaningful changes creates shifts consistently, and that's what we need to see over time. And to know that you are worth the effort. Self-neglect is not a character flaw. It's often a survival strategy that once made a lot of sense, but you're no longer the child that had to adapt. You are allowed to rest. You're allowed to grow. You're allowed to speak, nourish yourself, and change and take up space. Healing self-neglect isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming attentive to your body, to your emotions, to your limits, what you long for. if you've been neglecting yourself, you are in very good company, unfortunately. There's a lot out there to know that you are not beyond change, and with commitment, compassion, support, you can treat yourself with a care that you've never received but have always really deserved. So you are worth it, and hope you have a good one and be well.